Morning, everybody. Welcome back to this week's class. A couple things for you. The last class had this lecture live. My even day classes are having this thing pre-recorded. So here we go. We're going to talk about the Assyrians today. We're going to talk about the Persians today. Two big empires. This is kind of post-Egypt. So while Egypt was doing all the thing over there, after the Jews escaped, after they established themselves in Israel, two empires are going to come along. They're going to dominate those. Give you kind of a timeline-wise. Moses led the Jewish people out of Egypt around the year 1250 BC. They settled back into Canaan, or now called Israel, around 1200 BC. Roughly 300 years is going to pass. So we're going to jump about 300 years in the future, and we're going to talk about the Assyrians. So we're right around the year 900 BC, something like that. So who are the Assyrians and where do they come from? If you're looking at your maps, find the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. It's in present-day Iraq. It's Mesopotamia. On the upper end of the Tigris River, that's where we're talking about. So we're in the northern part of Iraq along the Tigris. Remember, the Tigris is the top one closest to Iran. The Assyrian people, they're really going to be used, or they're known for their use of iron and iron technology in there. So think weapons, think chariots, things like that are going to be used with iron. It's obviously going to help them be more mechanized, and they're going to do better with wars and things like that. So they're going to be able to build their empire out because they have those metal usings. Where would I find the Assyrians? Looking on your map, you would have found them in Iran, which is right next to Iraq. You would have obviously found them in Iraq, along Mesopotamia. I would have found them in Syria. So on your map, you should have a Syrian desert there. It's going to be just above where Israel is at. They're going to be there. They're going to be in Israel. You would have found it in Afghanistan and Pakistan, which is just to the right of where Saudi Arabia is at. And you would have found them in Egypt, which is across the Red Sea. It's the Nile. If you follow the Nile from the from the bottom, where it's right by the Mediterranean, and follow it all the way down into the mountains, and what we call the Upper Egypt, there's a town called Thebes, Thebes, that's there. That was also taken by the Assyrians. So they got a pretty decent-sized empire, but their empire doesn't last that long. They only have about maybe a 90-year run or so. The first king, the first ruler that's going to build this empire does so successfully and uses terror as a means to do it, which we're going to talk about in a second. But after him, generationally, they just got weaker and weaker. Greed is going to become a factor, and really the harsh methods they were using were kind of outdated. You guys are going to read about it in your reading today. And one of the things the Assyrians did to try and keep law and order is they used kind of the Hammurabi system, where it's very strict, very violent justice for anybody who does anything wrong. For instance, if you stole something, rather than kill you, they would chop your hand off. They would chop your tongue off for talking bad. If you did something that was against any kind of law or rule at all, very rarely would they actually kill you, but they would just mangle you, mutilate you, chopping arms off, chopping wrists off. In fact, a lot of cases, chopping noses off, chopping ears off. And a lot of that served a specific purpose. If you killed somebody, the idea was, well, pretty soon people are going to forget about them. But if you chop off their ear, chop off their nose, every single time somebody sees that person, it's going to be like, oh, wow, I probably shouldn't mess with the Assyrians. Those guys mean business. So just keep those guys in mind. In terms of the Assyrians, there's not a whole lot else that we need to talk about. It's pretty easy from the readings. Those guys are not that big. Like I said, they're only there for about 90 years. The next guys, though, the Persians, those guys are going to be legit. After the Assyrians kind of go away, the Persians are going to be the next empire that's going to rise up. They are going to start in what's now present-day Iran. So looking at your map, find Mesopotamia. The next country to the right of that is Iran. That's where they're going to start, mostly on like the lower end. It's organized by their king, a guy named Cyrus. Now, Cyrus is also a pretty legit ruler. This guy was not only powerful, good military man, but he was also very, very smart. For the day and time which he was there, roughly about 900 to 850 BC, this guy kind of had it together. He wasn't doing the Hammurabi stuff. It wasn't an eye for an eye. It was more like, let's have law and order, but let's do it in a way where people are going to respect us rather than fear us. So for Cyrus, this kind of revolutionized things. Cyrus's empire starts with Iran, obviously. They're going to build, they're going to go to the west all the way up until about the Red Sea, so not into India, or no, I'm sorry, not into Egypt just yet. And then to the east, they are going to go all the way into India. They are the first of the Middle Eastern empires to go into India, which is quite the feat when you think you actually have to cross through the Himalayas to get into India. It's one of the reasons why India is very seldom ever invaded. Those Himalayas are no joke. So for Cyrus and his armies, they really had to want to invade into India. They were successful. One of the things that made Cyrus and the Persians different is as they conquered people, they practiced religious toleration. They were okay with the Jews. In fact, they actually made it okay for the Jews to return to Jerusalem, something that no one else had really done. As they kind of conquered and adapted these other cultures, rather than overthrowing them and making them practice what the Persians were practicing, they basically told them, you guys can do whatever you are already doing, that's fine. Just know that all your taxes come to me now, and then you're good. You don't have to worry about anything else. And for the people, they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good deal. We don't care where our taxes go, as long as you let us to continue to do what we want to do. So the people were happy with that. Cyrus, when he built his temples, also kind of included or adapted all that stuff into his empire as well. So like when he conquered the Egyptians, he saw their temples and saw their pyramids and like, those things are nice. We can do something with that. So that's why you'd see pyramids in India. That's why you see them across Persia. Because they get those influences in there. That's the same thing that's going to happen in Mesopotamia, like in Babylon. The towers and temples they find down there are very similar to the ones you would have found in Iran and India and Pakistan and Afghanistan, going that way. He kind of adopts the culture. After the death of Darius, or after the death of Cyrus, what could have happened would have been the same thing that happened with the Assyrians. They could have started to fall off. That did not happen. Because they were not ruling like a reckless, fear-based kind of government, it was more like liberal, more kind of do whatever you want, pay us kind of government. The line of succession, the dynasty they built, was actually much more successful. Cyrus' son, and then later his grandson, Darius, continued to expand the empire. Darius actually takes it all the way into Europe. They're the first of the Middle Eastern empires to actually do that. They're going to make it through Turkey. They're going to cross the Mediterranean. They're going to invade into Macedonia. And they're going to try and invade into Greece. That's, if you watch the movie 300, that's that. That's the Persians attempting to invade into Greece, getting stopped by the Spartans and by the Athenians. Now, the Athenians stopping them is what actually is going to stop the growth of the entire empire. Over in the west, they're trying to push further into India. They can't do that because their armies have already lost to the Athenians over in the east. Over in the west. That's pretty much going to put an end to the empire expansion. It's going to go on for a little bit longer. I think the Persians have about a 400-year run, something like that. But ultimately, their empire is brought down by the same thing that brings down all empires, and that kings tend to just kind of hang out, power build, gain all this wealth, but they don't really want to go out and do anything. So as the empire expands, as it gets bigger, the kings stay in one spot, and everybody just kind of brings the wealth to them. Well, the people on the outer edges of the empires, they don't respect the kings for that. They don't really pay them any mind at all. And because of that, they continue to do their own thing without the leadership of the king. So slowly, the king will start to lose that power and that authority. But not before the Persians are able to do one last thing that's really going to benefit everybody. They established what's called the Royal Road. Now, the Royal Road is just that. It's a road that stretches across the entire empire. And the idea was it increased communication, it increased trade, and economic wealth. If you have a single road that runs all the way through Turkey and ends over there in India, all along that thing, you're going to find hotels, you're going to find places people stay, you're going to find rich farmland, you're going to find food, you're going to find basically means of communication and also means of shelter for people that are going to travel back and forth along that road. That road is going to predate or be a precursor for what's going to be called the Silk Road, as they're going to run that thing all the way from Europe all the way into China. But that's a few chapters away. We're going to be talking about that more at that time. We are finished now talking about the Persians and the Assyrians. You guys got a lot of information today, but all that information is also in your book. So you'll have no problem finding notes on that. You'll also be able to do some reading in there. You're going to do some mapping stuff today. So you got a lot of information you're going to get kind of as you bounce around, as you travel around. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time. All right.